What do you do when you're in a great relationship with someone, but their resistance to talk about the future is driving you crazy? I'm so excited to get into today's dating dilemma. I'm Talia. Welcome back to Dating Intentionally. I'm loving this series where I get to answer more of your questions here on YouTube, not just on the podcast, which, by the way, is available on all podcast platforms if you're trying to figure out how to date without all the stress and BS. If you have a dating dilemma you want some clarity on, you could submit it anonymously in the show notes below. All right, let's jump right in here. I, 29 female, have been dating my partner, 31 male, for 10 months. It's been the best, deepest, and most comfortable I've ever been in a relationship. I've been on 2 international trips together plus 3 domestic and see each other 4 nights a week, if not more. My question to you is how to discuss moving in, marriage, bigger money questions, timelines, and all that. We've discussed vaguely, but are in different life stages. I'm a student and he's not. And we both want kids in our early to mid 30s at some point. So if things keep going, we will get there. I tried to float the relationship check in thing, but he's very resistant to the idea. He's very interested in growth and conflict resolution, and we do resolve conflict regularly and easily, but he hates feeling like it's not organic. He doesn't have social media. He had a quite unique upbringing and is very driven and independent. I am very different and like reminders and resolutions to make changes in my life and love dating advice such as yours, and he thinks it's unnecessary. Any advice on how to bring things up without check ins? Is the anxiety about the future in my head since we've both agreed broadly we want the same things and are happy with where we are now? I'm definitely struggling to stay in the moment and not rush with what feels like everyone around me, like getting engaged, married, and having kids from the classic A type dater. So let me know in the comments what you think about the situation. To recap, you've been dating for 10 months, it's wonderful, but you want to start talking about the future and your partner is resistant despite having a growth mindset in some parts of his life. And you're feeling anxiety about people around you having kids, getting married, and you just want to be able to talk about the future. So I feel your pain. This is something that is really tough when you are a self described type A dater, a type A person, and being this far into a relationship where you know the future is so bright and the future is there, but you're not really making those moves yet, right? You're kind of just chilling for now with these big moves, moving in together, kids, marriage on the horizon. And I feel your pain. I really know how hard it is when you know your relationship is good, but it's also not moving forward because the timing isn't quite right yet. And, you just want to start talking about these milestones because then it feels like you're moving forward. I'm guilty of this in my relationship, and I'm very lucky to be with someone who just rolls with it. That being said, my husband has definitely put his foot down and drawn the line when he's like, hey, I don't want to talk about our wedding before we're engaged, or like, hey, we definitely shouldn't be talking about kids anymore until the end of the year. He has a point where it's like, we need to stop talking about the future. Let's just be present. And I appreciate that in him. Anyway, I'm just saying I relate. So, first, I want to unpack the whole resistance to check ins thing. It seems like you said, he's a growth minded person, maybe a little stubborn about how that growth happens and when. So, one approach you could try is just being like, hey, this relationship check-in thing is really important to me and I want to just try it as an experiment. Let's just try it one time and see how it feels. This takes a lot of pressure off, right? You're not saying we have to do this every week for the rest of our lives. You're not making it part of the routine, which sounds like is something he doesn't want to do. You're like, let's just try this once. Let's just see how it goes. Let's explore. So that's one thing, just in case you haven't tried that yet, that I would try. And look, I get it. Like when people say they want these big conversations to be organic, it definitely irks me. I get the idea that maybe someone doesn't want to force these things or make it kind of unromantic, I guess. But some things in life, like deciding to move in together, while it's a wonderful romantic moment in the relationship, it's also logistical. There are so many logistical decisions involved that you're better off discussing and thinking through and getting on the same page on first before you even open up Zillow. The organic thing just isn't going to cut it in a long term relationship where you need to discuss these decisions that affect your lives outside the relationship too. Like moving in together, that affects your finances, your lifestyle, your friends, your work, your family. So I'm with you. You want to talk about it before it happens. It's like kind of a logistical conversation. To meet your partner where he is, I would approach with more curiosity and just ask him what he means when he says he wants it to be organic. Like, what does he expect to happen? What does this look like in his head? What is the perfect scenario of having these conversations to him? Then explain your side. What is your ideal way to approach these conversations? And can you compromise? Can you figure out how to meet each other halfway? Can you meet his need to not have it be so rigid? And can he meet your need to have it be more planned? There's got to be a middle ground here. And this is a great test of your relationship. If it's as good as you say it is, you guys should be able to come to this balance and figure it out together. Maybe at first it'll be a little uncomfortable and clunky for both of you for different reasons, but you've got to realize you're on the same team. This is for the bigger picture, right? You're trying to set yourself up for a success. So that could look a lot of different ways, and I encourage you to get him on board with this more experimental mindset. Like, we need to just try this. This is new for both of us. Let's just see how it goes. Let's see what happens. When my husband and I started doing check-ins, that's exactly how I brought it up. I was like, "Listen, I learned about this thing on Instagram, doing a relationship check-in, like, let's try it." And the first time, we were both nervous. He made us Negronis, so now we call them Negroni meetings, but we sat on his couch on, like, a weeknight and did it. And then we kinda gave each other feedback after that, and he told me, he's like, I'm cool to do these check-ins, but I don't wanna do it during the week because it feels like another meeting after all my work meetings, and I don't want more meetings." And I'm like, "Cool." So now we do it on a Saturday instead every other week, and we do it, maybe we're at dinner, at drinks, having a beer, or on the couch. Like, we kind of just will it's not like we have to show up with our notes and sit down across each other at the kitchen table and it's like formal. No, we kind of like, "Hey, we're just together. Like, should we do our check-in?" And we pull up the questions, we answer them. It's like a quick thing, and then we move on. But that's like, obviously, it took us time to get there. The first one definitely felt like a big deal. So I do want to acknowledge that. What I'm trying to say here is you can try something and then make adjustments. And that's kind of what you have to do in a long term relationship with everything, with your sex life, with how you manage your money together, with how you manage your food together when you move in. Like, it's all kind of evolving as your needs change and as you're going to get better and figure out what you need to make it feel good for both of you. And look, maybe a regular relationship check in just isn't the right avenue for you guys. Like, maybe it's just not going to work, and that's fine. It's totally fair to ask for space to discuss your future since you're both on the same page about that future. Be like, "Listen, I really wanna have a set time to talk about this, like, one time. Can we just come together and discuss, like, what moving in looks like, maybe next week over some cocktails?" Like, you can make it fun. Another idea is using question cards or question apps where it's a little bit more of, like, a game because you're just pulling random question cards out, but some of these decks and apps have topic-specific questions, so, like, you can pull up the moving in together set of questions and go through them together, and that's a little bit more fluid than sitting down with the agenda. I also want to acknowledge your anxiety here, which I really relate to. Since he's not open to check ins and he wants these big conversations to be organic, you don't feel secure. You don't trust that it's going to happen, and that is valid. And I think that's worth explaining that to him. You want to feel like you can trust that these conversations will happen and he's taking it seriously and he's all in on your relationship. That's what it means to have these conversations. Another way to frame this to him is about building trust on your end because if you have this anxiety, it's likely because you're not feeling that the trust. You're not trusting that's going to happen. That's why you want the check-ins. And another way to address the anxiety and feel more secure is to reflect on conversations you've had in the last 10 months. Clearly, you've discussed some things, so is that enough evidence to show that he is willing to have conversations? Is that enough evidence to show that these conversations will happen? To his point, there's not a huge reason to have all these conversations right now. Like, you're a student, you are in a certain stage of your life. Like, I don't know what your move in timeline is. I don't know what you're thinking, but maybe there is a reason why you don't need to have them right this second. Like, you definitely don't need to have the kid conversation right now. I would say the moving in to marriage conversation makes a little more sense, but like, you don't need to have it all mapped out right now. In your submission, you asked, "Is the anxiety about the future in my head since we've both agreed broadly we want the same things and are very happy with where we are now?" I mean, I think anxiety is always in our head, right? It's always what we're scared of, what we're worried about, what we're stressed, like what the threat is. And I think the threat here, deep down, I mean, I'm speaking from my own experience, I guess, but it could be that you don't trust that the future you've vaguely discussed is going to happen because there's no plan yet. And it's hard. It's hard to sit in the discomfort of not having a plan when it's something you want so badly. And it's such a critical point in where you are in your life, like 29. That is a very sensitive age to be as a woman who wants kids, who is like on the brink of getting married and like starting a family. I feel you. I wish I had a quick and easy solve for that feeling of like everyone around me is having kids and I'm like behind. But here's what works for me. I try to remember that this is the only time I'm going to be at this age and this stage of my life, and I don't wanna squander that by focusing so much on the future because one day I'm going to long for this stage of my life and feel nostalgic for it. So I'd rather live in the moment and create memories that I'll love looking back on and feel grateful that I was present. Like, I'm entering this new stage of my life where I'm married, and I am so excited to start a family with my husband if we're able to, and I have to remember that the second I have a kid, I'm going to wish for the week I'm having right now with no kids. So that's the mentality that helps me stay present and just remembering that it's not a race. There is no right timeline. You are exactly where you're supposed to be. All right, I hope this helps. This was a long one. I just really relate to where you are and I'm rooting for you guys. Let me know what you think if you see this. Let me know also if you're watching this what you have done to address the anxiety about timelines and these conversations. Any other thoughts and advice are welcome. I hope you found this video helpful if you're going through the same thing. If you did, give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe for more dating advice every week. And of course, don't miss the Dating Intentionally podcast for deeper dives into topics like this. It's available on all major platforms. Once again, I'm Talia, and I'll see you next time.